The global economy is a machine of staggering physical mass. Every day, millions of tons of material are extracted, manufactured, and shipped across the planet to generate wealth. But that wealth is heavily stratified. To understand how, we rely on data from the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, an agency established to monitor the international monetary system. The IMF categorizes 194 global economies into three distinct tiers of development: advanced economies, emerging and middle-income economies, and low-income developing countries. This map shows the global distribution of income. Higher-income nations, marked in blue and red, are overwhelmingly concentrated in the global north. There are a few southern hemispheric exceptions, namely Australia and New Zealand, boasting relatively high per capita incomes despite their geography. This animated diagram compares population share against economic output. Just 14% of the global population resides in those advanced economies, yet they produce over 42% of the world's GDP. What economists often call the North-South problem is a massive, mathematically measurable imbalance in human productivity. Looking at this pie chart of global demographics, we can isolate the bottom tier, the low-income developing countries, or LIDCs. Nearly 1.5 billion people live in these economies, where per capita GDP is the lowest on Earth. Above them sits the sheer volume of the emerging and middle-income tier. Over 5 billion people reside in this category, and more than half of them live in just two nations, India and China. Is this severe economic stratification a permanent feature of human geography? To answer that, we have to test a core macroeconomic concept known as the convergence hypothesis. This theory suggests that this disparity should naturally erase itself over time. If the macroeconomic models are correct, the global map should not remain permanently polarized. The poorest nations on Earth should actually be growing faster than the rich ones. This equation shows the growth accounting formula. It states that productivity growth is driven by two specific ingredients. The first lever is capital accumulation. This means continually adding more physical capital, like factories, machines, and infrastructure, for each hour a person works. The second lever is the constant growth of technology and organizational efficiency. This graph plots the catch-up line, the relationship between initial income and subsequent growth. Adding capital to a rich country yields slower growth due to diminishing returns. Poorer economies, however, can surge by rapidly adopting existing technologies. In a world without friction, a low starting GDP provides a mathematical advantage for economic momentum. We test this theory by looking at U.S. states from 1880 to 2020. States like Florida and Texas started with low initial income and experienced rapid growth. Conversely, states like Nevada and Montana possessed high wealth but grew much slower. The data perfectly aligns into a clear downward trajectory. The math holds up. When institutional variables like federal laws, currency, and borders are held constant, economic convergence is an empirical fact. Applying this test globally, we track advanced nations from 1960 to 2019. The richest nations, like the US and Switzerland, exhibit the lowest subsequent growth. Conversely, Korea and Singapore started with less wealth, but achieved explosive economic expansion. Mid-tier nations like Italy and France fall in the middle of the spectrum, proving the trend line. Across entirely different cultures and continents, advanced economies strictly obey the gravitational pull of the downward-sloping catch-up line. The most striking examples of this catch-up are occurring right now, in real time, within the massive economies of China and India. This graph details their per capita GDP. Over the last 40 years, these nations utilized rapid capital accumulation to dramatically increase economic output. This single upward curve represents the changing economic reality for over 1/3 of the total human population. This trend is also emerging in sub-Saharan Africa. Nations like Ghana and Rwanda demonstrate a decade-long trend of improved economic performance, steadily lowering poverty rates. Convergence theory is an active mechanism. It is currently executing the greatest reduction in poverty in human history. But we must return to the central paradox. Look at this recreated plot. If convergence is a mathematical rule, we have to explain these 59 low-income developing countries. They are entirely off the curve, remaining stagnant at the bottom of the income scale.
The growth accounting formula is fragile. Capital accumulation requires a highly specific institutional environment to survive. The very first, and undoubtedly the most destructive obstacle to that required institutional environment, is the devastation of armed conflict. This historical photograph of post-war Korea illustrates the core problem. War literally destroys accumulated physical capital. It reduces infrastructure to rubble, bringing productivity growth to a total halt. Economists track what is called a peace dividend. When nations finally extricate themselves from conflict, like Vietnam and Rwanda, the result is often a period of rapid, pent-up economic growth. Without the foundational baseline of peace, the mathematical engines of capital and technology cannot even be turned on. The second obstacle is the race between national savings and population growth. National saving is the amount of GDP that is not consumed by households or the government. Capital per worker requires investment, which requires saving. If a country's population grows faster than its ability to save, the critical metric of capital per worker actually falls. The third prerequisite is the establishment of market freedoms and secure property rights. Historical data shows that as feudal nobility weakened and legal ownership over land and businesses became secure, entrepreneurs finally gained the incentive to take risks and build enterprises. The final prerequisite is the active facilitation of technological adoption. For developing nations, this usually requires foreign direct investment. This is an investment made by a firm or individual in one country into business interests located in another. By bringing in foreign capital, a low-income nation allows its local workers and managers to directly imitate the manner in which a highly productive foreign plant is organized. While strong intellectual property rights incentivize invention on a global scale, developing countries can often benefit, at least temporarily, by not enforcing intellectual property right protection on foreign patents, allowing for rapid technological imitation. The macroeconomic catch-up line provides a proven pathway toward eradicating global poverty, but it remains a measure of potential, a mathematical advantage that is only realized through deliberate policy, secure property rights, and lasting peace.